afternoon, everybody, and an incredibly warm welcome to Melbourne and to Melbourne Convention Centre for the Startup Network. OpenAI presents a conversation with Sam Altman. How fabulous that we're all here this afternoon together for this incredible presentation. I'd like to start by firstly acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet, the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and to elders of all First Nation communities that visit us here at the MCEC. I also extend my acknowledgement to all the First Nations people who have gathered here on this land for 40,000 years, a tradition of storytelling, building communities, and exchanging ideas on this very land. My name is Natalie O'Brien, and I am really proudly quite a new CEO here at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre, and I'm super excited to delight and invite you here this afternoon. What an incredible honour it is for us to work with the Startup Network on this incredible presentation this afternoon, that we've got this space to gather in such incredible numbers here this afternoon. Today we get to hear from the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, OpenAI and ChatGPT, which has made waves globally and certainly part of many of our conversations in all sorts of forums, from school to business to sport. We're so super excited to invite and welcome Sam here to Melbourne, our great city, and all the entourage that are here travelling with Sam. Sam, of course, an entrepreneur, an investor, a programmer, a revolutionary, which are the sorts of innovations and continuous learning that we hope to achieve here at MCEC. We look to innovate with everything we do, from menus, from growing our food, from technology, from rigging, from staging and lighting. And in keeping with our innovation journey, we're really so proud to partner with the Startup Network here in Victoria. Through this partnership, we're honoured to share a commitment in innovation and creativity, and we're delighted to be able to sponsor a stand-up event very, very recently here at the centre. We're so very, very delighted that all of you can join us here this afternoon for what's going to be a terrific presentation. So again, thank you so much for everyone, and I'd now like to introduce and welcome the CEO of the Startup Network, Vicki Stirling. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Natalie. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out to see us this afternoon. We are so excited. It's a little bit nervous out the back, but I think we're all good now. Sorry we're running a few minutes late, but we will keep everything on time. So, who is the Startup Network? Well, we're a community of founders of all stages of growth. And we want to support the individuals to become the legendary founders of tomorrow. That's our mission. But who knew about Startup Victoria? Anybody in the room knew about Startup Victoria? Yeah, great, amazing. We're among friends. That's fabulous. So we were Startup Victoria, and then just last week, as we announced Sam was coming, we changed our name. So we are now, yeah, it's been a big week, let me tell you. We are now the Startup Network. And why are we the Startup Network? What is it that we do that's so special? Well, we inspire, engage, and connect legendary founders. Emphasis on the name legendary. And how do we do that? Through legendary events like this one. This is a pretty special event. And through startup programs. We offer programs to really early stage startups, as well as scale-up startups, to help them on that journey. No matter where they are or what their background, we give them the support for free as part of the Startup Network. And we have a kick-ass community. Those founders are incredible. They're our lifeblood. They're why we exist. And we want to just bring more founders through so they can support each other in this beautiful ecosystem that we have here in Australia. And so, as you know, Startup Victoria used to be just based in Victoria. And, you know, we felt pretty lonely. And we thought, why do we put borders around founders? Why isn't it possible for founders, no matter where you're based in Australia, to connect, build communication, build great products together, learn from each other's technologies. Well, we want that to happen, and that's why we are the Startup Network, offering the whole of Australia, all of you, an opportunity to connect and communicate and share wonderful stories about your founder journeys. So, how many in here today are actually from Victoria? Can I have a whoop, please? Woo! Oh, that was quite a quiet whoop. It sounds like most of you are not from Victoria. Okay, we'll try that again. How many of you in the room are from Victoria? Hey, that's better, that's better. Great, well, that's a lot of you. But I also know there's a lot of you in the room that aren't from Victoria. Can we? Yeah, 3. More than 3. How many of you not from Victoria? Oh my God, so many of you down here. That's incredible. Well, if you heard a woo next to you, please can I ask you to turn to that person, show them some good old Melbourne hospitality, and take them for a beer afterwards. The boat builders down the road, great place for a beer. Oh, actually, I think I've just invited 2,000 of you to the boat builders. Let's just scrap that, okay? Maybe some of you might want to go to the boat builders. Plenty of places in Melbourne, like plenty of places to go for a drink. But please, we are a beautiful community here, of startup community here in Melbourne, and we want to extend that hospitality to all of you. And also, we want to extend that opportunity, that hospitality to Sam, which is why you're all here, right? No? Yeah, that's why you're all here. So we thought there might be a few Sam geeks in the audience. Maybe a couple. So we thought we'd ask a few quick-fire questions. Are you all ready? Yeah? Okay. All right. What was Sam's first startup? Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Well done. That's amazing. And what was like Looped? Looped was a location sharing service for phones, smartphones. Next question. What was the name of the accelerator that Sam was involved in? Yeah, love that. Love that you all know that. We love Y Combinator. And one of the questions we should ask him is, why isn't Y Combinator right here in Australia? It certainly should be. And he was only 28 when he joined Y Combinator, which I just think is amazing, blows my mind. How long was he the CEO of Reddit? Does anybody know the answer to that? 8 days! 8 days! We've got a real geek down here. This is awesome. 8 days he was the CEO. I don't know what he did in that 8 days. Maybe drank some coffee, made a few changes, did some computing things. 8 days. Amazing. And what year was OpenAI founded? Yeah! just FYI, there are no prizes at the end of this. So the fact that you're not answering the questions, it's fine. You don't lose anything. But yes, 2015, amazing. How many countries has Sam, in the last 4 weeks, just visited? 21. Oh, very good. 8. Low ball. 22 countries in 4 weeks. And I just want to put an emphasis on that. We are so grateful that Sam has chosen to come here as his last stop. Yeah. Woo! Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, this morning, actually, Sam was with our lovely PM, and he flew in from Jakarta this morning, had a meeting with the PM, and then flew straight here. So there is no other stops. Melbourne is his last stop. This is where it's at. Yeah. So what I want to do today is just make sure that we make him feel so welcome and show our gratitude for the effort he's put in to really learning about the global needs for AI, for caring deeply enough to meet with leaders and the public to understand what they are looking for, what concerns they have, to understand more about the environment as as AI starts to really take on a major role in all of our lives. not just people in business, but in everyday lives, in our schools, in our communities, in how we do things every day. And not many leaders of big companies would offer to do that, and I think we should be incredibly grateful to him for that. So, I just want to, set the scene, because we're an Australian crowd, right? Yeah, we're pretty relaxed, pretty easygoing. A couple of Americans down here, but we love them too. And we're a pretty relaxed crowd, so we want to make sure that everyone feels really, really welcome. And I want you to really I want him to feel that you're really grateful he's here, right? And you can do that, right? Yes! Yeah. So when he comes on, just give him a really, really warm welcome. He's going to be exhausted. He's been traveling for 4 weeks non-stop. And yeah, I know that he's really happy to finish it here, but also kind of sad, right? Because there's been a lot of work and a lot of good things been going on. Okay, so I think I'm running on time, right? I think we're good. Okay, I'm getting good. Okay, so we're almost there. Are we ready? The first thing I'm going to do is introduce our host of the Q&A. So I should probably tell you how it's going to run. We're going to have a Q&A for 20 minutes run by Dr. Nora, who is from the Melbourne Business School. And then we're going to have a little quiz. Now, I'm not going to give too much away. There'll be a little quiz for Sam. So you all got to get involved. Lots of audience participation, if you don't mind. And then we're going to do audience Q&A. Now, I have got a few questions from the audience already lined up, but we would invite more of you as we go. So if you've got a question for Sam, keep it locked in that brain as the day goes on. What he really wants to know is the problems that we're facing, or we think we might face in Australia through the implementation of AI, or the challenges we might have in Australia from the implementation of AI. So think about that, keep that front of mind as you're thinking about the questions as time goes on. Now we have, I'd like to introduce lovely Dr. Nora. Now, Dr. Nora's credentials are so long that I've had to keep a note here. It's just, I'm just going to read from this. I don't like doing this, but needs must. So, Dr. Nora Kovlowski is Melbourne Business School's inaugural Chief Learning Officer. She is determined to transform education to ensure that the next generation of business leaders learn in a way that helps them lead the skills revolution. Nora holds a degree in psychology, management, and teaching, and began her career as a researcher focusing on human interactions of technology. She quickly advanced into academic leadership and became a department head before the age of 30. She's pretty accomplished, Nora. And has since become a consultant for many ASX 100 companies, helping them equip leaders with a deep sense of purpose and a sense of the part that they can play in shaping our future. As you'll hear from Nora's accent, she has well-traveled. She's lived in Germany, in Ireland, and the UK, and she now has 2 Australian children with her Israeli husband. So without further ado, I'd love to invite Dr. Nora Kovlowski onto the stage. Hi. Thanks so much. We are so grateful. So grateful to have you here with us this evening. Thank you so much, Nora. Oh, this afternoon.
Thank you, Vicki.
It feels like nighttime, doesn't it? Like, who
Yes.
else feels like it's like 8 o'clock at night? It's so dark in here.
Yeah.
Maybe it feels like that because I've been up for what feels like 3 days non-stop, but maybe not. And Nora, what are you looking forward to most about having this chat with Sam tonight?
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here, and it's a very exciting opportunity for us to create community. And today we have a community of 2,000 of us in the room to ask some big questions about the potential, the possibilities that AI affords, but also have a really honest and thoughtful conversation about what are the risks, what are the implications that we need to manage and that we need to think about as a society.
Yeah, great, amazing. Well, we can't wait to get started. Are we all warmed up enough? Are we feeling like we've got the energy going in the room? Okay, so if we're without, I've just seen Ryan exiting stage left, so I'm just checking that he's going. We're just going to check to see if Sam's ready. Obviously, we're running a pretty tight ship, so when he is ready, we'll let you know. But bear with us, please bear with us. The tension is
Vicki,
almost killing me.
Maybe I have a question for the audience, actually.
Yes.
And so I do think tonight, it feels like tonight, we're stretching the definition of a fireside chat quite a bit. But let's just imagine there are 2,000 of us sitting around a massive campfire, and we are discussing and debating the issues of the day. So my invitation to you, while we're kind of improvising and waiting to get everything ready, is perhaps you could utilize that community today and turn to your neighbor. If you know your neighbor, great. If you don't, my question for you is, what's your favorite use case for ChatGPT?
Ooh, I love that. Okay, go. 30 seconds. I'm gonna ask Nora what her favorite use case is. What's your favorite use case?
I think we're ready.
We're good. We're ready to go. Okay. Without further ado, Sam Altman, everybody.
Hi, lovely to meet you.
Hi, Vicki Stirling.
How are you?
Thanks so much. Lovely to meet you. Just let yourself down. I'm gonna exit stage left or right, and I'll leave you to it.
Good day.
Well, that's quite the Australian welcome. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a delight to be here with you today, and let's get right into it. So it would probably be an understatement, Sam, to say that the last 8 months or so were incredible for you and quite extraordinary. I would love to understand the 15-year-old version of you. What do you think teenage Sam would have made of the last 8 months or so of your life?
Good question. I mean, like, getting to work on technology was definitely what the 15-year-old Sam would have wanted to be doing. The sort of, like, diplomat part of it, probably more confused and less excited about. But honestly, that's not, like, most of the time is still really just trying to, like, figure out the technical challenges. And I think, like, the 15-year-old version of me could not have imagined that this would have actually happened, but would have been so excited. I think this is, like, the coolest, most interesting technical challenge I could have imagined.
Awesome, thank you. And a similarly unique situation has been your last 5 weeks. So I hear you've visited 20 cities across 5 continents. I'm not sure if that is the right number, but something like it.
Way more. I think 22 countries and maybe 28 cities, 6
Wow.
continents.
In 5 weeks. That's quite a feat of human stamina, actually.
There have been moments that it's like that I've been like very tired, but on the whole, like the logistics have worked okay.
Okay. Wow.
I'm ready to get home for sure, but it's been like a very special experience to get to talk to so many people building on OpenAI, ChatGPT users, and really kind of like hear the stories and also how things are similar in some contexts, very different in others. What people want out of the technology, what people don't want. It's been like a super special experience.
And from speaking to those user groups, developers and heads of state across all of those different countries and cities, what are your learnings from the tour? And especially I'd love to understand, is there anything that you're learning that will change what you're doing at OpenAI going forward?
A lot. Yesterday on the flight here, I started typing up, because I took all my notes by hand, and I started typing them into my computer. And it's like very exciting about all of the new ideas, but just like the mountain of work in front of us to go do to make the API and ChatGPT better is a little bit daunting. But there were some things that I kind of knew about ahead of time. Like I knew that people were unhappy with the speed and latency and that we needed to get that better. But there were a lot of use cases that I hadn't thought about at all, where people were like, hey, it just doesn't work for this, or I need this other feature. Or like I knew it performed worse in languages other than English, but when I was in Japan, someone was like, hey, it's hello is 1 token in English, konnichiwa is 7 tokens in Japanese. like really sticks to you, and it's like, all right, I'm really sorry. We got to figure out a way to go improve that. That's not fair.
That's fascinating. And another question to follow on from that would be, there's a lot happening at the moment in the space of regulation. And of course, I know that you've been very vocal in calling for coordinated governance effort of super intelligence. And just in the last 2 days, we've seen the European Parliament take some first steps towards passing the EU AI Act. And right here in Australia, we began a process of an 8-week consultation just in June. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts around how regulation is practical now that those steps have been taken? And is your thinking around regulation, is that evolving at all?
I have been surprised in 2 ways on the trip about the regulatory conversations. Number one, there's an extreme amount of excitement and optimism about what the technology is going to do. The economic possibilities, the social possibilities, the way that this is going to improve people's lives, and already is. You know, like, a lot of heads of state are like, I use ChatGPT every day for this and that, and I'm making my government use it, and we're going to go like do this in our education world, and we're doing this here, and there's a lot of excitement and a desire to make sure that we don't slow that down or put regulation in place that slows new startups down or open source projects or just the tremendous economic benefits. And then also, there's much more acknowledgement than I was expecting about superintelligence being something that we have to take seriously potentially in the short term, and the risks that could come with it. So we've had a lot of conversations around the world about what an international agency, for lack of a better word, would look like for governance of superintelligence. How we would have a licensing framework, how we would have tests during training, post-training, before we deploy it, to make sure that, you know, no one is accidentally going to do something really bad. And on both of those cases, there's been a tremendous amount of alignment in all of these very different countries.
So let's stay on the possibilities for a bit. You mentioned that even heads of state are quite excited, and I'd be very curious about your perspective on some of the Australian challenges that we're facing. So as you're closing out your tour in Melbourne, there's a couple of things that Australians are currently worried about or challenged by, and the first of them is our innovation performance as a country. And the Startup Network, who are hosting us this afternoon, are trying to solve for some of the challenges, but there are many. And just to give you a flavor, earlier this year, the Productivity Commission released a report saying that 98% of Australian businesses do not release new-to-the-world innovations. The report called Australian business adopters, and incremental improvers. You've obviously got a lot of experience in creating innovation ecosystems. How do you think we should tackle that as a country?
I think one of the exciting things about this AI revolution that has just started is it is a full reset for everyone. Everybody gets to start over. You know, like we're all at the starting gun, and everything is just going to be very different now. And so I think people, countries, areas, whatever, who missed the last sort of innovation boom, everybody is now at the same place, and it's a reset for all of us. And that's an exciting time. And, you know, like, I think this is probably maybe the best time to start a startup ever. It's at least the best time to start a startup since the internet. I think this is going to be bigger than mobile and like on the order of the internet, maybe bigger than that, we'll see. But for new companies or existing companies that really want to innovate, like, all the rules just changed, and this is when people can do tremendous innovation. So I would say, like, don't worry about the past, look forward, like, embrace this, and like the innovation potential in front of us globally is quite exciting. And it really is way more, I mean, I knew it was like happening super globally, but it's been, the visceral feel of that on this trip has been very cool.
I love the challenge that you're essentially throwing to us here in this country. Just embrace it, just go with it, don't think about the past.
I mean, to be clear, Australia has plenty of great technology startups, like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't.
And there are many of them
like
in the
many
room
in
today.
this room, so I would like somewhat push back on the premise, but I would also say, like, there's an opportunity now for a lot more.
Awesome. Specifically then, in the world of Australia's contribution to AI, where do you think, so given our talent, given our geography, given our trade dynamics, where do you think we could make a contribution to the AI revolution?
I think it's all going to come down to who like embraces the new technology the fastest and the deepest. It's like the whole world wants this technology. The whole world needs the benefits of this, and it's like I think saying like, well, what ways are Australians or Australia different than the rest of the world is somewhat the wrong question. And it's like, what can we go do for the whole world? Before OpenAI, I used to run this early stage investing firm called Y Combinator. And one of the things I would notice is startups around the world that were not in the US would say, well, we're going to do this regional version. We're going to do this, you'll do it for the world and we'll do one for our region or world, this context. And what I would always say is like, why don't you all just do the whole thing, do the thing for the whole world? And I think that's really important. Many startups have now gone on to do that. But rather than say like, what can we do like unique to Australia, I would just say like, what can we go do better than anybody else in the world?
Okay. So again, I think you're encouraging us to think a bit bigger.
Sure, why not? That's always more fun.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about another challenge that we're grappling with at the moment, which is productivity. I don't know if this has come up on your trip so far, and I know you've only really touched on in Australia in the last day. But over the last 60 years or so, productivity growth over the last decade, productivity growth has slowed to its lowest rate in 60 years. And I know that there'll be, in addition to the startup community, many business leaders in the room today who are quite concerned about how do we tackle the productivity challenge?
Look, I think AI is coming just in time. This is not just an Australian phenomenon. This is happening globally. It's happening really badly in the US. Like we've had more than one decade of just totally lost productivity gains. Like it kind of, in some ways, doesn't make sense, but if you kind of like try to understand all the pieces, then it does. The productivity growth that we are already getting from AI is astronomical. One of the areas that I think we're most familiar with is computer programmers, just because Copilot was out much earlier than other technologies. But you talk to computer programmers, they'll say, I'm 2 times, 3 times more productive, sometimes more. That'll go up to 20 or 30 times more productive. And when you have a 20 or 30x productivity gain, it becomes a qualitative change in what someone can do. When someone has not just the ability to program 20 or 30 times more productively, but do all the other aspects of their job, it kind of gets like everybody is running their own medium-sized company, can really output a lot of things. So I think one of the most exciting parts of this technology and part of why people want it so much is the productivity growth that we can all already see happening.
And you talked about how everybody can be more productive and almost you're not a one-person operation, but really you're sort of expanding yourself in a way. What about the leaders in the room today who are thinking about how do I transition my workforce? How do I encourage learning, reskilling, upskilling, and at scale? How do I do that in a practical way?
The thing that we've seen work the best is companies that just say, we're going to have everybody start using ChatGPT, everybody start building on the API. We don't know what's going to make sense, we don't know what's not going to make sense, but we're going to have like a very high rate of experimentation. And as the models get better and the capabilities go up, we're going to keep trying things that didn't work before. And there are a handful of companies that really have like worked closely with us and gone all in on saying we're going to like use AI for everything. And they report incredible results. It may take a few weeks to like figure out exactly what workflows are going to change and how you're going to think about what people are allowed to use it for or not. But like leaning all the way in and just saying we're going to try this for everything and see where it works, that seems to be the best approach.
Okay. And in this version of future events, if we're all more productive, we're all wealthier, ideally, healthier, more educated, to me, a potential downside sounds like you're removing friction from life. And we need friction, we need challenge, we need adversity as humans in order to create meaning.
We'll find it.
We'll find it?
We're not going to run out.
Sam, personally, where will you find meaning? What's your source of meaning in the future?
I think we never run out of problems. I think every problem we solve is a greater and greater triumph and leads to greater and greater and more interesting problems. So I've never believed this thing like we're gonna build AGI and then we're all gonna sit around and play video games. Some of us will, and that's totally fine. Like if that's what you want to do, I think you should be allowed to do that, and society should like make that happen for you. But most people want to go like, as you said, I don't know if it's like experience adversity, but at least experience challenge. And I think the problems, as we have better tools and as we have more interesting problems, the capabilities of us will increase, but the expectations will increase as much, or maybe even more. And I'm excited to go see where all that goes.
Yeah, there's a lot of promise. Do you ever think about what it means, not just for you personally as a human, but if you think about the definition of a human being, or us as a species for that matter, and the definition of us is we are defined by our broad-based intelligence. If and when superintelligence becomes a thing, how will you change our definition of this species?
I think it's true that intelligence is what differentiated us from all other animals, but it's a particular kind of intelligence. Like animals have great intelligence in certain kind of ways. We have very sophisticated language. That's one difference. We have the ability to sort of do very complex social coordination. That's another difference. And there's many other things as well, but I think it's not as simple as saying, we have this system now that can compute really well, and therefore humans have no role. I think we'll have this tool that'll do a lot of the things that we do now or did in the past, and we will go on to do and care about new things. And there's versions of this that have been happening for a long time. If you think about the previous technological revolutions, we used to spend a lot of our time like hunting and gathering, and probably defined ourselves by our ability to like outsmart, certainly to outrun over long distances animals, and then we didn't have to do that as much. And then we, had new things that we defined our time as doing. And then the Industrial Revolution came along, and that changed stuff again quite dramatically. The computer revolution came along, that changed it quite dramatically. I do somehow feel that this one will be bigger than others, but that's probably all of us just feeling that, our moment is particularly special.
Yeah.
Or maybe it really will be different. Like history, thousands of years from now, we'll have to judge that.
Who knows? Maybe humans are not all that special. I'm told we're almost running out of time, but I'd love to understand from, as you're wrapping up the tour, there's a bit of a microphone issue.
Okay.
5 weeks, many sessions like this one, many user groups, developers, leaders. What do you wish, Sam, you'd been asked on this tour but haven't?
Honestly, the questions I was worried the questions were going to be like very like boring and sort of like, whatever, but you know what I mean by that. They haven't. They have not been. These questions have been great. All of the questions have been great. It's been like a real pleasure to get to talk to people. I guess like one thing that I'm always happy to talk about more that naturally does not get asked as much as the downside is like, what does the real upside scenario look like? What does it really mean if we have intelligence that is too cheap to meter? If we can all have everything we want? Not only that, if we can have things that we can't even imagine today. So it's not even like, we solve climate change and like every disease is cured. That's all great, but that's boring and it's obvious and predictable and it's certainly going to happen. Like, what's the really great stuff 30 years, 50 years, 100 years into the future?
Sam, thank you for thoroughly challenging us and provoking our imagination this afternoon. I'm now going to hand back over to Vicki, who's the CEO of the Startup Network. So Vicki will lead the next segment and then the audience Q&A. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Nora. Thanks. Hi, how are you? Okay, so we purposefully created quite a big Q&A for you today. But before that, we know that there's a little bit of, can be, a bit of friendly competition between Australians and for Americans from time to time. So we thought for fun, well, I'm English, okay? So I'm used to losing, right? So I'm like not part of this at all. But I know you guys love to win. So we thought for a bit of fun, we might do a bit of competition.
Okay.
Are you up for that?
Let's do it.
All right, awesome, okay.
I have no idea what's about to happen, but
I know.
let's do it.
That's why it's exciting, right? So, Sam, we also heard on the grapevine that you like cars.
I do.
And Australians love cars, right? Yeah, the Aussies love their cars, let me tell you. Some hoons out there. In the audience too, I imagine. So we've got Sam's classic car quiz.
I don't know as much about classic cars, but let's try it. Let's try
Okay,
it.
let's go. We're going to do this. All right, so you've been to a number of countries. And so what we've done is select a couple of cars from different countries you've been to. We'd like to know if you recognize the car and the country that car is from. Are you ready?
I'm not going to do well, but let's go ahead.
Okay, number one.
That's a Porsche from Germany.
Yeah, well done. Do you know which kind of Porsche?
Some kind
Anybody?
of 911.
Oh, yeah. Carrera. And sorry, I was meant to ask the audience. Audience? Okay, I think that's 1 point to Sam, right? Yeah, 1 point to Sam. All right, yeah, Porsche. It's pretty beautiful. Do you have one of those?
I do, yeah.
Of course. Next car. Can you recognize the location?
It looks like an English car.
Yes, good job. You're pretty good. And any idea of the kind of car?
Not really.
Nah. Anybody in the audience? Oh my God, yes. 1 point to the audience. A Triumph Spitfire. Good job, audience. Ooh, it's getting tense. I can feel it on the audience. Next car. Do you recognize this car? Oh, there's a lot of murmuring in the crowd. I think there's a bit of debating about what this one might be.
I don't.
Oh, anybody? Yeah. Anyone know which kind of Citroen? Yes. Oh my God, the audience have got this. It's pretty good. Huh? Yes, the Citroen D. I don't know if that's correct. I just made that up. It's a pretty ugly car.
You call that a ute, right?
Yeah! Great job. Yeah, that is a ute. I'm just going to put it to the audience. There is another name for this car. Is anybody? A pickup, yeah?
We wouldn't call that a pickup truck.
No, we don't call it a pickup truck. We call it a ute. There's a version of this car that's got a bigger back, a bigger boot. I believe the Australians call it something.
I've heard of that.
That was amazing. Great job. Thank you so much. Okay, who won? Who won? I reckon it was a draw.
We'll call it a draw.
I reckon we'll call it will we call it a draw? Oh, no. Will we call it a draw? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you for that. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to get to the audience. Finally, it's your turn. We have a few people that we already selected. We had over 100 questions coming in from the audience, so thank you so much for all of the questions you put in. We've got 8. We've got 40 minutes. I reckon we could get through 8 that we've selected.
Easy.
Yeah, easy peasy. So first one up, we've got the microphone set up here and also over to the sides, but if we can come to the spotlighted area at the front, that's what you get when you come to a technology-savvy place. Mike Kelly, first of all, please. Oh, Mike, you're sitting right here. Oh, we'd like a round of applause, an audience member.
It's working? Yeah. Pick it up then. So, Sam, first, I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the audience for coming to Melbourne. It's amazing. It's good to see
Happy
you
to
in
be here.
Australia. And also, I wanted to thank you because you really, unlike a lot of leaders, take on a lot of questions about the morals and the ethical kind of facets of what you do. And I think that's quite rare, and it's really it's kind of courageous in a way. You kind of really front up for having these kind of difficult conversations. And so I'm curious to ask a question in light of the recent cap raise that you did for WorldCoin. Just for anyone that hasn't heard about WorldCoin, it's a project looking to create the world's identity and financial network as a public utility. As my understanding goes, it's not going to be a public utility to start with, and it won't be for a certain period of time, and investors will need a return. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I was just curious, kind of got two questions in the same light. How do you feel being the person that is driving forward the world's most advanced AI tech at the same time as the world's biggest identity and kind of economic kind of, I guess, network? And how do you manage the risks of yourself and a small group of people having so much power and influence over structures that are so important for humanity?
Yeah. Great question.
I think I'm a big believer. I think this is like a Charlie Munger quote, but he probably stole it from somebody else. But this idea that incentives are superpowers. And if you can just design the incentives right, you can limit a lot of the normal challenges you face, and you can get a lot of the behavior you want. So I don't think the whole just trust us thing works. I think we have to design structures given the sort of nature of what we're facing. So with OpenAI, we started as a nonprofit. We then realized that given how important scaling was and the level of capital we were going to need, there was no way to do it as a nonprofit. We sort of had to figure out how to harness the power of capitalism, but we wanted to do it in a way that didn't compromise our mission. So we came up with this idea of a cap where people could earn a fixed return, a certain multiple. But if we did actually make this super powerful thing and it was generating trillions or tens of trillions of dollars or whatever, but more than that, really important power, there was this nonprofit structure that would retain control and be able to do things. And the incentives that puts on us to not worry about making unlimited profit, but know everybody at the company and our investors are going to do great. And then beyond that, we can just sort of act for whatever at the time seems like it'll be best for the world. I think that's very important. I think if you look at some of the previous tech companies, the people there were great people, or at least most of them were, but they had this incentive system that was urging them to just push this number up and to the right. And you don't, in the heat of any moment, you kind of can make a little decision and then another one and another one and another one. And so we just try to get the structure really right. And, I don't have super voting. I could the board can kind of anytime decide I'm not doing a good job, have a different CEO. I think that's actually quite important. Eventually, we want to figure out a way that we decentralize that to the world as a whole, but that's much easier said than done. That'll be another novel structure for us to figure out. But I think the world as a whole, however that gets implemented, does somehow deserve governance of superintelligence, even access to it, sharing of the benefits, but more importantly than that, maybe access to this system is the most important wealth resource on earth, and you got to divide that up equally among people or fairly among people somehow. So building a structure for that, I think, is the way to do it, not saying here is exactly how I'll make every decision forever.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. And great question, Mike. Thank you. Next person we have up is Felicia Coco. We have her close to the mic. Yes. Squeeze through. Everyone let her out, please.
Hey, Sam. Sorry that you had to go to camp earlier. Apologies on behalf of all of Melbourne.
Not at all.
So I guess what you said earlier about the it being the best time to start a startup since the internet.
At least.
That really resonated with me because it kind of felt reminiscent to when ChatGPT launched. So I guess, particularly since the launch of ChatGPT, OpenAI has really inspired a wave of different AI startups that are cropping up. And many of them are building off your API. So it almost feels a little bit like every company's coming out and saying they're an AI company. So I'm curious, which AI startups do you think are going to be the most successful and why?
So with any boom like this, with any startup boom like this, there's two things going on. There are the people who see this and say, this is going to be transformative. I can do this thing that I've always been wanting to do, that I'm so excited about, and I really kind of love this, and I'm going to go dedicate my energy to it. And I think, I can mention some of the categories I'm most excited about. Education is very high on the list. But maybe for me personally, the thing I'm most excited about is using this technology to increase the rate of scientific progress. I am a huge believer that the only sustainable way that our lives all get better is scientific and technological progress. And we need more of that in the world. And if we can get more by building better tools, which I think we can, this is an exciting time for that. And I could name like a whole bunch of other categories too, but it's not going to be about what I or any other one person thinks. It is the creative energy of the world when you give them a new tool that always astonishes you. And that's what's been so fun about this trip, is just the breadth of what people are doing. And I don't know what's going to work. Like, I have my guesses, you have your guesses. Like, all of us together voting as a market will decide. But the energy there is cool. There's another thing going on, which is there were people that a year and a half ago were all in on crypto that have all pivoted to AI, and 2 years from now will pivot to something else. And those like tourists, I'm like less excited about.
Yeah. Oh, we good? We're good. Okay, that was a great question. I love that you touched on education. I also think it's going to be a revolution for education.
Totally transformative. I think, the studies that I've seen in the US are that the difference between classroom education and one-on-one tutoring is like 2 standard deviations.
Yeah.
Unbelievable difference.
Yeah.
But, most people just can't afford one-on-one tutoring. And also, we can probably have a better one-on-one tutor in some ways than we can with any, any one human right now.
Absolutely.
And so if we can combine one-on-one tutoring for every child with the things that only a human teacher can provide, the sort of the support and the excitement, the everything else, I think that combination, it's just going to be incredible for education.
Yeah. And I also, sorry, we will get back to the audience questions. I'm just quite passionate about this subject as well. I think for neurodivergent kids too, it's going to have a big impact, isn't it?
We've really seen that, yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I'm really excited by the opportunity that ChatGPT or any AI can bring into the classroom to help level the playing field. And that's what I see this as an opportunity, which is great. Okay, the next person we've got a question from is Rebecca Johnson. Rebecca, are you close to a mic? Yes, you are.
Hello.
Amazing.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So hi, I'm Beck Johnson. I'm finishing a PhD in the ethics of Gen AI, and you gave me access to GPT-3 in 2020, so thank you very much for that.
Of course.
So that was great, and that enabled me to run some experiments in how the model might alter the values embedded in text when I asked it to summarize it, which was really important. And I'm really appreciative that you have OpenAI's framework, and I think that's a fantastic initiative. But knowing that aligning these models to different use cases is so important, I was wondering if you might consider expanding that service to non-tech communities around the world so that they could better evaluate and fine-tune the models for their own use cases.
Yeah, we're working on what a version of all of that looks like for less technical people. What we really want is to get to a world where you can sort of say, like, here's the behavior I want. I'll like write out 10 pages of English for you. I'll give you whatever data I have, but I don't really even know what fine-tuning means, and I certainly don't know how to go make a good reward model. Just make me a model that does what I want. And we should be able to get there. So we're working on that. We have, I think, a lot of promising research directions that are beginning to come together, but I think we will have a customization approach for some that'll work kind of abstracted to the user, but that it will let anyone be able to get a customized behavior.
Great news, thank you.
For sure.
Amazing. Thanks so much. That was a great question. Millie Marconi is next. Hi.
Given your experience with Y Combinator, what advice would you give to Australian AI startups seeking global recognition?
The thing that we put on the Y Combinator t-shirts is make something people want. Like, of all of the advice that YC has to give, that is like the one inviolable tenet I believe in. I didn't put it there, to be clear. Paul Graham, who started Y Combinator, did. But it is the only piece of startup advice that I think there are no exceptions to. And that's the advice I would give. Like, whatever you're thinking, like, do it a little bit bigger, make something that people like want a little bit more, and don't worry about too much else. Like, any way you solve that problem, if you solve it sufficiently well, you will have all of the global recognition you want. But that's the thing. And I guess the other thing I would say is, I don't know how to phrase this. Like, I was going to say don't do something derivative, but everything is like somewhat derivative. It's like do something that is like very ambitious, even if it takes like many years of being misunderstood. It took OpenAI 4.5 years to launch our first product, which was quite bad. And it took, so I would say it took us like 6 years to, maybe more, 6.5 to get to something good. And I think that's like totally fine, and there should be more of that, as long as you are making rapid progress internally along the development to something like that.
Amazing. Great answer. Thank you. Next person we have is Anthony Wymond. Did I get that right? Anthony? Yes. Great. Hi.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for spending your time with us and for bringing us ChatGPT. So my question is, how did you achieve so much with such a relatively small team compared to much larger tech companies? And what advice would you have for small Australian tech teams looking to solve a huge technical challenge with minimal resources?
I would flip the question and say, how do these companies with very large teams accomplish anything at all?
Yeah.
I think it's like easier to succeed with a small and focused and super talent-dense team. I'm a huge believer in, I mean, obviously from the Y Combinator background, but I'm a huge believer in small, focused, super talent-dense companies that have a clear mission that everybody believes in. And at a company that is like the scale of like hundreds of thousands of people, that's just hard. They can copy super well. Like ChatGPT, definitely going to get copied now. But we'll already be on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think innovation is easier with a relatively small team that has to make a decisive and clear concentrated bet, and that doesn't tolerate any mediocre performers. That's it.
Yeah.
So, just to follow on from that then, how did you decide on those people? Like, how did you decide that they were the right fit for the founding team when you were trying to build something that hadn't been done before? Like, did mindset play a bigger part? What did you look for?
I think there's like no one here is like the thing you care about. It's like, here are these like 12 things that are important, and you've got to sort of like look at where people spike across all of them. Like, raw talent is obviously huge, but without the right kind, like without the sort of the right kind of mindset, and maybe even more importantly, without like a shared belief in the right mission and the right approach, like the right, maybe everyone doesn't agree on the same technical approach, but at least how we're going to run the company, how we're going to try to work, where we're trying to go. Even without that, it's bad. But I think the thing that you need for like scientists and founders are all like a little bit different. So I hesitate to like give one answer of just here's what to look for everyone. It certainly gets easier with practice. Like, one of the best things about running YC was getting to meet like tens of thousands of founders and observe over many years like who did well at what, and also like where weaknesses needed to get supplemented. But I think like you want people who are unbelievable at what they do, and that have a like determination and commitment to the mission, and that are going to contribute to the net output vector of the organization. So there's like a lot of super talented people who bring with them their fair share of challenges, and that's okay unless the challenges like are so extreme that they slow down on net the whole organization.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, amazing. The next person, I only have a first name. I have Oren. Is Oren near a mic? Yes.
Hi, my name's Oren. I recently quit my job to start an edtech startup inspired by OpenAI.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Most of Australia's workers are in the services economy, which could be severely disrupted if your foundational models get much better. From doctors to graphic designers to lawyers to PR, people who have never faced massive disruption before are now suddenly worried. What do those workers need to do to prepare for that AI future? And what specific skills do individuals need to be augmented and not replaced by AI?
I suspect it's just not quite gonna go like the naive, the AI takes my job thing. Certainly today, anybody who uses these models at all will be like, okay, these models are very good at tasks, but they're not good at whole jobs. So I'm gonna, use this to be able to do more work. I'll make more money. I will do the more interesting pieces of it, whatever. And I can farm out all my tasks and sort of do things more efficiently. Then there's a question about what happens as it gets automated more and more. But even then, I think what happens, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, as you give people better tools, they just operate at a higher level. The expectations go up. So, you'll have, and I think human demand seems pretty limitless. And so we'll just the expectations on all of us will go up, but our ability to do things will go up. And we will morph our jobs into who knows what. Some jobs will totally go away, and there will, of course, be some totally new ones too. But it's very hard for me to imagine a world without human doctors, even if the day-to-day of being a doctor is quite a different experience. In terms of the skills that'll matter, I hesitate to give any recommendations about specific hard skills that'll matter, because I think the technology evolves in such sort of unpredictable ways. But the ability to be creative, certainly the ability to be resilient and quickly adapt, to run a very fast feedback cycle. I guess the one specific prediction for the future I feel most confident in is the rate of change is just going to be much higher than we've been used to. I think we've lived, all things considered, we've lived in a reasonably static world these last few decades, and I think that's going to change quite dramatically. And so being able to flourish in that kind of a world and what it takes to be flexible and learn and adapt to new things quickly, that may be one of the most important skills. The skill of figuring out what other people want, what other people need, and how to be useful to them, I think that's going to be super important too.
Cool.
We can do anything we want now. What should we do? That's a newly important question.
I just love that. I love that idea that we can now stop the doing and the head down and start the thinking, right? And that creative thinking is, for me, what excites me about ChatGPT. What questions can I ask the data today is probably the most exciting perspective, right? And the more creative we can get, the more we can look outwards rather than down. I think that's when we get really exciting results, right? You know that. I don't know why I'm saying that in front of you.
I totally agree, though.
Okay, the last person we have on planned questions, and then it's ready for the audience if we've got time, is from Simon. I have B2B dash next to his name. I'm not sure if that's right. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Hey. Thanks, Sam. It's been a crazy way to navigate business lately. The last sort of 12 months accelerated timelines by about 3 or 4 years. Last 6 months feels like the future has just erupted as we knew it, and we now need to figure out a different way to operate. So as the person in charge of our tech stack, and I'm seeing a lot of our competitors quickly bolt on ChatGPT and other AIs to add AI to their name, to their platforms, it feels like we should be jumping a curve rather than just trying to quickly respond. What do you, I guess, recommend that as a technology developer, we should be trying to focus more on, and what should we be completely abandoning to sort of jump that extra noisy phase that's sort of happening over the next 6-12 months?
It sort of depends, a lot of details about your company in particular. The one thing I would say is figuring out how to use the tools to increase the rate of internal productivity, I think, is something people are under-investing in. Mm-hmm. And this always takes a while. Whenever the way we can work changes, most of us are too slow to adapt to it. And so figuring out how you make your company just operate 10 times faster and better and everything else, that's probably the way to figure out now the way that everyone's going to work in 3 or 4 years and do it now. That probably pays off a lot no matter what.
Okay, thanks, man.
Amazing. Great. Now, we have got an open mic, if you like. So who would like to come and ask a question? Oh, we've got somebody running down there. Hi.
Hi there.
Love that. Hi.
My name's Sarah.
Former Q.
Sorry. My name's Sarah. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Girl Geek Academy. And 22% of the world's tech workers are women. And there's a massive gender inequality in technology. However, I used ChatGPT last year when I was very sad and depressed. And I asked it how to solve gender equality. And it said we needed more women and girls in technology. And I put it to you, how can you help us get there, please?
Yeah.
I think that's a society-wide problem, but we are hearing anecdotally that ChatGPT is getting girls and women more excited about a new technology than they have about other platforms, and it's an easy-to-use way in. And I hope that'll be one small contribution. And if you've got ideas about what we can do with ChatGPT to make it even better, we'd love to hear it. But I think relative to other tech platforms, there's been more of a balance on this one.
Absolutely. Please connect me with your team.
Amazing. Next question.
Hi, Sam. My name is Guy. I'll give you a bit of context. I first thank you for coming here. I'm quite excited. Sorry. By day, I head the security architecture for one of our big telcos here. At night, I do a PhD on AI safety. And that's the context. So regulators are awaking. You've traveled around. We are looking at rate of change. But what about adoption? And specifically, what are your views for businesses and insurance? Are you seeing any awakening or any progress in the insurance industry and how they're going to tackle this new liability in the waking of prompt engineering and a whole bunch of other types of businesses?
I think right now everyone's still trying to figure that out. No one quite knows, other than saying all of the problems are getting better, which they are, and businesses need to use a lot of discretion about outputs of generative AI with humans in the loop, which they are. I think no one quite knows what the right insurance or risk framework is going to be. If you look at previous technological revolutions, that's going to take us 5+ years to figure out.
Wow.
But it's an active discussion.
Great, thank you. We're going to go over here to this side.
Hi, Sam. My name's Peter Zing, part of Transhumanism Australia. And I've seen in the news some flack around this techno-optimism that people are having about the future. And would you identify as a transhumanist, and what would you say to the naysayers out there who don't see the benefits of extending healthy human lifespan, enhancing intelligence, and improving the well-being through the investments and also at OpenAI that you've made?
I don't identify as a transhumanist. I think humans are really great, but I do agree that extending health span and augmenting humans is a very good thing to do. But also, I'd say none of us are blindly optimistic. I mean, we started this company because we thought AI could destroy the whole world, and we wanted to figure out how to prevent that. So I think balance here is really important. This comes with most powerful technologies, but this one in particular, the same thing that can help us cure all diseases could create new terrible ones, and we've got to reckon with that. So I think blind optimism is not the right answer. Neither is blind pessimism. I've been impressed on this trip around the world with how much nuance people have and how they can understand how we have to look at the whole picture, mitigate the risks to get the benefits.
Thanks, Sam.
Over here.
Hi, Sam. My name is Andy Song. I'm actually an AI professor from MIT. So what I'm really curious about is how ChatGPT handles personal information when we actually ask personal questions and sensitive data. How would you deal with that?
You can
just delete that or keep it?
Yeah, you can totally turn off training on any of your input. It won't make the model better over time, but for sensitive personal information, most people would just turn off, train on my data. And that's what I would say.
But when people are asking questions on the web interface, so the data will send to the engine, but someone will keep the data or will just
No, if you choose that toggle, privacy mode, basically.
Okay.
No, yeah, none of it.
It will not
Yep.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, back to the center. Oh, sorry, left, sorry.
Hey, Sam. Do you think that AI researchers who want to maximize their impact should probably just move to SF and join one of the big labs?
It depends on what kind of research you want to do.
Do not leave Australia, by the way. Sorry, crowd. Stay here.
I have a slightly different answer. No, what I would say is like if the thing you want to work on is like scaling the frontier models, probably you do need to join one of the big efforts. But any other kind of research, I think you could do anywhere. Like that's the one thing where I think there's just a limit to the number of giant compute clusters in the world. And if that's what you want to do, yeah, probably join one of those efforts. But if you want to do many other kinds of important research, and by the way, I think there was a period where we had this huge compute overhang, and that was the only thing that made sense to work on. But now that that's kind of like used up, algorithmic progress matters like more than ever before. I still think you can do great work in a place like OpenAI on all of that, but there's plenty of other places you could do it as well.
Awesome.
If you do move to SF, give us a call.
Hi Sam, my name's Rory. My question is that Australian culture, communications and social norms differ from those in the US. My experience using ChatGPT is that it clearly represents US social norms and culture, even down to requiring a month-day-year format to verify your age, which nobody else in the world uses. As a pretty clear market leader and as AI usage grows, what steps are you taking to avoid whitewashing other cultures with US-centric norms?
Great question.
Yeah, great question.
So there's maybe 3 components of that. One, we really do want to make sure that the history, the languages, the culture of the world is represented in these models. And we've had a lot of conversations about that on this trip, how we get all of that training data. It's easier for us, frankly, to get US-centric training data, but we want to get everything in the model. And a lot of people have been very kind about giving us data that they want us to train on. The second thing is how we're going to decide on the value system, for lack of a better word, of GPT-7 or whatever. And a few things there. One, we want to have ways to collect that from the world. So people talking to ChatGPT, for example, and ChatGPT saying, hey, how do you think about this trade-off? And then maybe after that saying, hey, totally up to you. You can keep that answer. Here's how people elsewhere in the world might be impacted by this. Does that change what you think? Maybe it can help with a little bit of moral progress too. But there may be much better ideas about how to collect this. We recently launched a grant program for people that want to work on ways to democratically get input from the world on these values. Eventually, we want to figure out a way to do that, set the very wide bounds of what these systems will do globally correctly. And then within those, be able to say, hey, I'm in Australia, I have a traditional Australian value system, or I have this different one, or let me just write out for you what it is because it's too hard to explain, and follow local laws and whatever. We want to give people that level of customization. No two people in this room will ever agree on what a non-biased system looks like. And that's fine. Maybe that's even good. But everyone does deserve, again, within these wide bounds, AI to work the way they want and to represent their values, history, culture. And I think one of the things that's so powerful about this technology is it's totally capable of doing that. RLHF works better than I imagined it would. The fact that we can kind of program these systems in natural language in very subtle ways, I think gives a lot of stuff. That was a long answer, so I'll skip the third part.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Hey Sam, Stuart Stoyan, an Exit founder, now investor in mostly fintech. You've advocated for and asked for regulation and for government involvement. Governments historically have been pretty average when it comes to innovation, and in particular, anything that's beyond the election cycle is problematic. What do we need to do to ensure that governments don't screw this up? What is it that you're doing, but more importantly, what is it that we in Australia need to do to make sure that we can harness the opportunities ahead of us in AI?
One thing that we believe is that a lot of time to study these risks and to develop safety tests, external audits, internal and external red teaming is really important. When we finished ChatGPT till we released it, it took us 8 months to do that. There are still some things that we missed. Society and these systems co-evolve. And so if you predict, if you do everything you can before you release it, it doesn't take into account that society is going to evolve with it. And so there is this system where you do just, no matter how good you are in the lab, you have to have this tight feedback loop. And that goes for some of these risks as well. So we try to anticipate as many as we can. Every time we release a system, I think we get it more aligned than the last. But the world is going to change in response and along with these systems. And I think no static approach will work because of that. And so the main message we tell people is very tight feedback loop. It's going to be impossible to write this all down. Let's talk very regularly. We recommended agency-based approaches in many cases because I think trying to write the regulations that have got to last for 30 years is very difficult given this coevolution. So I'd say that's like my top recommendation.
Sure. Thank you.
Amazing.
Which reminds me, I'd like to amend my answer about if you're a researcher, should you just move? Like, just start if you want to work on large models, just start one in Australia. You certainly don't have to move. Like, more efforts here is good.
Please. Okay, we're going to go over here.
Hi, Sam. My landlord is terribly unresponsive, so I used the ChatGPT API to make a virtual landlord that handles maintenance request emails in 5 to 8 seconds instead of the 5 to 8 days my human landlord normally takes. So 4 orders of magnitude time collapse and 4 hours of angry spite quitting on a Sunday. Given that creating these working prototypes with ChatGPT is insanely easy, is a startup always the next step to get started on scaling these solutions up into, scaling these solutions up?
First of all, I think it's worth noting that with ChatGPT, prototyping things is very easy, but building them robustly for lots of users is still harder than it seems. So there is still a lot of work after that prototype, and you really start to feel like the brittle edges of these systems as you deliver the system to a lot of people.
80-20.
Yeah. I think startups are still great ways to get things done in the world, but I think our conception of a startup is about to change a lot. In like my group chat with my friends, we have a little pool going, a betting pool, for what year the first one-person company that gets to $1 billion valuation is going to get started.
Wow.
And it would have been totally impossible without tools like this, but I think the landscape has shifted so much that what it means to be a startup might just be different.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Grant Blaschke from Beyond Blue, that's our lead mental health organisation. We're finding a lot of people are going on to these large language models to tell their story, getting advice, and even imagining they're getting empathy and support, anthropomorphizing the model. Do you have any thoughts on how we communicate what these large language models are and what they're not?
Yeah. One thing that I think is important is just disclosing to people repeatedly that you are talking to a large language model. And we try to do that subtly throughout the interaction with ChatGPT. And I think most people are pretty sophisticated and understand that. Clearly not everyone, and there are clearly people, and I think this is where we're going to need some new guardrails and norms, who have, let's say, very intense experiences talking to these systems. I spent some time with people on this trip who are using ChatGPT in the way that you described, and I was sort of like, this is like a little bit unnatural to me. I'd love to just hear more about it. Non-judgmental as I can. It's like, I don't want an AI friend, and I want to hear why you do. And one of the things that came up was for people with social anxiety, knowing that they're getting like help, counseling, friendship, warmth, but knowing that there's not another human there is like helping them feel more comfortable that they can practice and that they can like later talk to humans. But it's this very non-judgmental thing, and it's like, if I talk to this like AI life coach, the fact that I know it's not a human is making me feel get over some of my anxiety. And that's great. We just need to figure out a way that we don't have some of the stranger things that you could imagine go wrong if we're all talking to AIs for all of our social needs all the time happen.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, great question.
Hey Sam, my name is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Taha and I'm a part of Syncytium, which is an AI-based academic integrity software startup tackling the problem of unethical use of AI within academia. I want to bring your attention to the release of Orca, which is a model released by Microsoft, which was trained on data from GPT-4 on the chain of thought and logical reasoning responses. Does OpenAI use similar curating of data to achieve the logical reasoning levels of GPT-4? And to add on to that, There was also a recent research paper on how researchers from MIT and Harvard were able to use LLM models, and within just 1 hour, they were able to get access to pandemic-class agents, and with little or no lab training. And does OpenAI account for risks such as these and implications when curating the data sets for large models?
Yeah, so on the first one, certainly if you use chain of thought techniques with GPT-4, you can get impressive results, but we're not like distilling down the outputs of that to further train the model in the way that I believe Microsoft was doing and what you referenced. In general, reasoning is very high on our list of things to figure out and improve. Like, if these models have one weak point everyone agrees on right now, it's probably their reasoning ability, and I think we'll find new things to do there. On the second, yes, we're very nervous about a number of risks, but biological terror is quite high on the list, and we've been watching what could be possible with these models. We go to a number of efforts, like what you said, and many other things too, to reduce the risk there. I am worried that no matter what we do, there will be open source models that are specifically trained to help people create novel pathogens. That's a real thing the world has to contend with.
Wow. So, does that mean that, are there steps in your training process where you do account for this, or is it just that there'll be open source models? So, it's.
Oh no, we don't want our model. I mean, even if there's open source models, that does not excuse us from not having our models not do it. So there's steps in our training process, before our training process, after our training process to mitigate that kind of risk.
Okay.
A lot.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, Sam. My name's Daniel Langanis. Thanks for making the effort to travel across the globe and all the way to Australia to address the importance and challenges of AI. I really appreciate it. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I think the future looks brighter than ever with the work you and the team at OpenAI are doing. I know a lot of questions you get in regards to Elon usually pin you two against each other, but as Lex Friedman has frequently said, I believe love is the answer. So keeping that in mind, could you potentially see a future where you and Elon are back together working on AI?
Yeah, sure.
For example, on the challenges that will arise with creating a brain-computer interface to combat the existential threat AI could pose to humanity in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. Move on. Next.
Hey Sam, my name's Liz, and I actually teach lawyers how to use ChatGPT so they don't end up all across the news like the lawyer from the Avianca case. I actually have a following, prompt engineering for lawyers, but that's beside the point. My two top concerns are human-AI collaboration in circumstances where we haven't been able to achieve human-human collaboration fully, and also environmental impact and people creating unnecessary, ocean plastic of data, just generating stuff because they can without much thought, and then sort of the energy and effort and the waste behind that.
On the first one, I think human-AI collaboration is an easier problem than human-human collaboration in almost all ways. So I'm hopeful that human-AI collaboration will help us make progress on human-human collaboration, which I think is a much harder and more complex problem. But human-AI collaboration, you kind of get that right away if you start using ChatGPT, and no one has a problem with it. There's not the same complexity or difficulty there. On the energy consumption at current...
I think I misspoke. I was actually, the word I wanted to use was alignment. As soon as you started talking about it, I realized I misspoke. Yes.
So for current system capability levels, the alignment problem, I think RLHF does a great job with.
Yeah.
It's true that you can jailbreak GPT-4 if you try, but if you're not being adversarial, GPT-4 will behave the way that we as the system designers and you as the user want remarkably well relative to what people thought about the alignment challenges of the past. The alignment challenges of the future will be greater, and our current techniques will not scale to superintelligence. So we're hard at work developing new ones, but I kind of think deep learning just solves all problems, and it's only a matter of time until you figure out how to do it. So I think we're going to solve this one too. We're putting a huge amount of new effort in the company into it. Is that
yes?
okay?
That's somewhat satisfying, yep.
Well, I think you just have to look at the track record.
Yeah.
No one can predict the future, but if you look at where we are in alignment relative to where people thought we were going to be by now, that's at least somewhat good.
The one thing that you did say that I found a little bit disturbing was when you said, oh, we'll just have the model align with the values local to wherever it is. But as you know, values are so different. And like, for example, in some countries, it's totally acceptable to do things that wouldn't align with my values. And if ChatGPT was, or large language models in general, or AI was going to help accelerate that or give ways for people to do that better, faster, I would feel judgmental about that. I wouldn't feel happy.
You think those people should have to live with your values?
Yes.
No.
I don't.
No.
I'm sorry, I
I do
don't.
to a degree. I do to a degree.
There are
But
some.
I think there are some things like basic fundamental human rights type values that we would definitely want to make sure that we're universal.
As I mentioned, I think we do have to agree on what the global bounds of this system are going to be. I think there are basic human rights that the system has got to enforce.
We're not talking about, color preferences or soccer teams. We're talking about,
I think...
Go ahead if you want to continue answering the question.
I think there's a lot of nuance between color preferences and human rights. We can all agree that these systems are going to respect basic human rights, and that will lead to some conflict because not everybody agrees on what those are. But we're gonna have a process, and I think the trend of humanity is towards more respect of human rights over time. We have a long way to go, but I don't think we should diminish the progress we've made. And color preferences, of course, we don't care. But I bet there's other things where, you and a reasonable person in a different culture would disagree, and I think we need to still leave space for that.
That's totally fine. Yes, that's totally fine. You and I, Sam, are now in alignment, so that's
okay.
Good. Yeah.
And then on the energy question, at current systems, I think it's totally negligible. The amount of energy used globally to train and inference these systems is still a rounding error. That is going to change over time, but we're going to have renewables and we're going to have fusion, so it'll be fine.
All right, thank you.
Amazing. Look, we're almost out of time. I'm sorry, we haven't got time for any more questions, but I know, we really want to thank you, hugely thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, can we just, seriously, thank you, genuinely. I'm so grateful. We're all so grateful that you chose Melbourne to come and and hang out here with us. We're also really appreciative. You must be absolutely exhausted after 22 plus. No,
I feel good.
No, it's totally fine. Without further ado, we'd like to please thank Altman.
Thank you all.
Thank you, genuinely. Thank you so much. It's great.